Well, good afternoon to everyone. My name is Colin Mays. I'm serving as the co-chair for the Soul of Philanthropy Michigan. Happy to be with everyone this evening and excited for our upcoming program tonight, which is titled Youth Service, where we focus in on 4 key leaders in the Detroit area, which all encompass different areas of Black philanthropy, and we'll have an opportunity to showcase and tell their stories. I'm going to kick it off to our moderator for the evening, Mr. Jeremiah Steen, who will introduce our esteemed panel. Jeremiah.
Thank you, Colin, for that great introduction. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Soul of Philanthropy Michigan's Yours in Service Black Leadership Giving 4-panel conversation. My name is Jeremiah Steen, and I'm the Executive Director of the Steen Foundation, and I will be the moderator for today's discussion. Before we begin, I would like to send a shout out to our Soul of Philanthropy Steering Committee for all of their invaluable service. Also, for our audience today, we will have a Q&A portion in the last 30 minutes of today's conversation. Now, let's jump right into this phenomenal conversation with our panelists. Can each panelist share their name, the name of their organization, and some of the work that they have been up to? I'm going to start off with Dwan, because you're first on my screen here.
Thanks, Jeremiah. Pleasure to be here with you and the rest of the panelists, and shout out to TSOP for all the work that they're doing. I am Dwan Dandrige. I'm the CEO of Black Leaders Detroit, and we provide funding to Black entrepreneurs in the city. We service the for-profit, nonprofit sector primarily through grants and no-interest loans. And what have we been up to? We are currently getting ready to cut checks in the amount of $453,000 combined to Black business owners that have applied for a no-interest loan and got approved in last quarter.
We can go to Harry.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm proud to be here. My name is Harry Todd. I represent the Jive Turkeys Detroit, an organization started in 2018. 2018, we fed 430 people, and this year we've grown to 15,000. Our model is feeding families is what we do, and we primarily focus on Thanksgiving, and we are currently in 6 cities in the state of Michigan, and we're growing every day. Food insecurity is a big thing. Again, feeding families is what we do. I'm peacock proud and hyena happy to be with all of you today. Thank you.
Melanca.
Sure, thanks, Jeremiah. Melanca Clark, such a pleasure to be here on this panel, and so delighted to be a part of this fabulous exhibition. I'm the president, I should say outgoing president and CEO of the Hudson Webber Foundation, which is a private philanthropic institution with a long history in the city that has a mission of improving the quality of life in Detroit, and which invests in organizations and projects and initiatives that move our city forward, including our friend Dwan Dandrige, Black Leaders Detroit, is one of our grantees. Such a pleasure to be here.
The last and certainly not least, Sharnese.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sharnese Marshall. I'm the founder and CEO of the Konnection. The Konnection is a Detroit-based nonprofit organization focused on working with students who are chronically absent from school. So helping them stay engaged through after-school programs, travel opportunities, resources right inside of their school, and really just allowing the students to thrive in their school space. So that's what we do as an organization. We just completed our very first full year of programming, so super excited about that. We were able to serve over 500 students this first year. So super excited about that, taking our students down to Atlanta next week, where they will do a mini HBCU college tour, Six Flags, Coca-Cola Factory, a lot of cool things. So really getting students from Detroit outside of their neighborhoods and exploring the world.
Perfect. All right, thank you all so much for sharing more about yourselves and your organizations. So this first question is going to be for all of you, and it is, what was your first introduction to philanthropy and giving back? And we'll start off with Dwan Dandrige.
So I would say my first introduction to philanthropy was probably my mom. right? Watching my mom and dad. And I think, you know, one of the things that I saw my mother do was give a lot from her little pot. And she would actually take family members in that were, you know, struggling and fell on hard times, and, you know, have a couch. We probably were already overcrowded as a home by some standards, but, you know, if we had a couch in the basement or in the living room, she would welcome them in and share what we had until they were able to get on their feet. So I didn't know that that was philanthropy at the time. I just thought it was like, you know, looking out for family. But I think that was probably my introduction and some of where I draw inspiration from even to this day.
Anyone can jump in, Adele.
Yeah, so I'll jump in next. Similar to Dwan, I grew up not knowing what philanthropy was. I thought it was just a way of life. Grew up in a two-parent household. Both of my parents were ministers, marriage counselors. My dad was the minister of music at church. So all I saw was serving. All I saw was giving from my parents. And that's something that they've instilled into myself and my siblings. I remember looking forward to Christmas, not because of the gifts that we were going to receive, but because Christmas Eve was our Christmas. And what that looked like was going downtown to pass out hats and gloves and blankets and food to the homeless. And I remember feeling just filled up and excited about being able to bless those around me. And I knew from a very young age that I would, you know, be a philanthropist. Didn't know what it meant at that time, but as I got older, I understood like, oh, I've been a philanthropist since I was a kid. But definitely my household, my parents, just seeing them serve and still serving to this day.
I can jump in. So I guess I just want to appreciate Dwan and Sharnese's expansive conception of philanthropy, which obviously is at the heart of TSOP and the framing and this beautiful exhibition that's been put together. And I do think, I similarly think that the sort of the stories passed down to me in a natural way about family coming together and really the necessity of it, and just thinking about, you know, our community, the Black community writ large, before credit cards and all the things. The story of any individual success in that family was often the story of everybody chipping in, coming together to house people, to put resources together, even to, you know, lend your credit, right, for folks to be able to do something. That's been stories that have been passed down. And I think that for me, it's been really interesting now that I'm in institutional philanthropy and have been for the last 7 years, and really come to understand a lot more about sort of this side of the fence, but also having that tradition to draw upon. And frankly, in my career, which wasn't, and who does start as a philanthropod, that's what I call people that give away money that's not theirs, which is what I do. But I started as a lawyer and an advocate focused on civil rights issues and surrounded by a community of peers that really had a passion and commitment to giving back to their community. You know, the whole thing about to whom much has been given, much is expected. And everybody around me sort of felt that way as we worked on our different priorities and issues. And for me, that was, you know, really as much of an instruction about what philanthropy is as my current role.
Well, it's a hell of a question. It's a loaded question. I think what I'm echoing, what I'm hearing, what I've heard, and what I would share also is that we've been doing the damn thing before we knew it was a damn thing, you know, quite frankly. I mean, it was ingrained. I mean, I'm getting excited now. If you can tell, my hands are moving. Some of the Black folks here in Detroit, one of the first elements of philanthropy was when the forefathers were in the South. They sent Junebug or Tony or Bob or whatever his name was up north to get a job. To get a job and stay with somebody who's already up here. In somebody's room, somebody's house, a little bed. He went to Ford, go to company every day, came back home, and then he might have a little girlfriend down south. He sent back for her. He brought her up, a little house. They had more family living with them. They sent back for more people, and then on and on. That was literally Detroit's first element of philanthropy. Whether they called it, they just called it, well, that's our family. We all we got. That's what they called it, probably something like that. But we were, when I saw the exhibition, TSOB exhibition, they talked about how we've been doing this without calling it something. It resonated with me because we used to go to Mother Waddle's on Grass Street, my mother and my brother and I. And we hated going there. It was big, dark warehouse with people. And, I was 7 years old, but I saw that we were doing God's work without calling it that. We were just selfless people, just doing something bigger than ourselves. And, not that we were wealthy or had a spoon that was silver laden, but, we didn't have to worry about eating or finding our next meal. But so that's what gravitated me towards this. And, we all have our different stories. That's why I'm so glad that this vessel of this opportunity to share our collective stories, the collective, because there's so many links in what all our internal experiences about. And I'm just excited. I just heard what everyone said. And I just said, wow, that's just amazing. So.
And thank you for that. And that's the one thing I appreciate about the conversation, which you all kind of touched on, is how we've all been philanthropists already. We just didn't know it, right? And Harry, thank you for emphasizing that. At the Soul of Philanthropy, we talk about, the power and the importance of Detroit Gives Black. So if you don't mind me asking, what does Detroit Gives Black mean to you all? And how does it show up in your work on a day-to-day basis? Anyone can jump in.
Well, I can tell you right now, I have my own company, and what I have found is that I'm spending more time on raising money and giving money than even making money, which is a conundrum at times. But this is a passion. It's like, I have my business, and I found, hey, I need to start working on my business, busy working and trying to figure out how I can help, how I can bless today. And that's like, oh, snap, I got to make some money to continue this blessings, But, it once you get the bug, it's in your blood, it becomes your soul. It becomes your essence. And whatever the hell else you do to make a living, it really becomes just a jumping, a tool just to do more. That's what I found.
I would say for me, it means doing and giving before the money and resources come. I think as a people, we've always done a lot with a little. As Black leaders, we must be creative. We must, create collaborative partnerships and relationships because we're doing a lot with a little, right? We're clearly underfunded, and data shows it, right? We don't have as much of the resources. We don't have as much as the money, which is why Black Leaders Detroit is around, right? To help fill the gap, right? So for me, it's being creative, is doing a lot with a little. It is being the voice in the room, being, an advocate for all Black leaders, all Black communities, and speaking our truth, speaking the truth that we see in our communities. It also means sharing not only your money, but sharing your resources, right? Sharing your relationships, sharing your expertise. So just being creative and doing the work before the money comes. And that was actually my story with the Konnection. I had maybe $2,000 in the bank when I launched the Konnection. And I was like, I know that I'm called to serve these people. I know that I'm called to serve these youth, and the funding will come, right? And that's what happened. I did a lot with a little, and the funding began to come. Not saying I have it all. So Black Leaders Detroit, I could use a couple more dollars. But just saying, like, doing a lot with a little and staying at it, regardless of what the bank account looks like.
Yeah, I would add to that. or echo and add, right? One of the things that we notice is that, when a Black entrepreneur opens up a business, you don't have to give them a requirement to hire from within the community, right? Like that's baked and built into who they are. As we are often out recruiting like big businesses and big industry to come here, and I think the mayor does something very important and make it a requirement that they hire X amount of Detroiters, which means because of, demographics, that's going to mean X amount of Black folk. You never have to tell us that. Like we're already going to do that. Oftentimes our initiatives or our businesses have that social like component baked into it, right? I ran a small business myself, and one of the things that we were looking to do was create jobs for folks that needed a second chance or a third chance. And I think that oftentimes when you see some of the Black executive directors of some of the nonprofits that may have a small budget starting out, Sharnese just said she had $2,000. We start things because we see the need, and oftentimes we're practitioners and we step in to fill the need, and we have the desire and the ability and our own bank account that we go into it with. But I mean, I'm very thankful to have Melanca's out in different rooms that will bring us along and vouch for us and, just be a voice for us inside some of those spaces. So I'm excited to be here. And that's kind of what Giving Black means to me, is that we're out here doing it and we're in some of the other spaces as well, being advocates for one another.
I would just underscore, there's significant data around that, what Dwan's talking about in terms of hiring Black companies and businesses hiring from their own community. There's also data about giving, about this very topic, that shows as a percentage of wealth, Black people actually over-index for giving, and that's worth saying out loud too. And it certainly resonates with everything that Sharnese and Harry and Dwan said. And I would just simply add on Detroit Gives Black. For me, I think for me what that means is doing with and not for. And I think that in terms of sort of, with the emphasis on us doing for each other, what comes with that is that with piece of it, right? Because it's of the community. Folks are less likely to try to dictate with the strings that they have about what sort of their preferences are, but really we're talking about authentic engagement and the community doing for itself, coming together with its own resources to support ourselves.
Thank you for that. And you tie on, and this ties on to that point. And it's interesting, right? Because you all are professional philanthropists, right? But you all are also humans who are constantly filling other folks' cup. So if you don't mind me asking, what fills your cup in your work and in your personal life, and how does it kind of drive the impact that you all are doing in your organizations?
I like that question, Jeremiah. I would just say for me personally, I feel like there has been, and you asked a personal question too, but on the professional level, this give back piece, although I technically now have a job that is literally about giving away dollars. I think I mentioned that I'm a lawyer by training, started at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, went on to other advocacy organizations, and then into the Obama administration. And the entire thread has been about, whether you want to say social justice or civil rights. And as I've come to Hudson Webber with a portfolio and a mission that I inherited, but certainly from my perspective, as I've come into that role, I think of philanthropy as another tool against an end. That hasn't changed for me personally as I've moved through sort of what I'm investing myself in professionally. So that certainly on the professional side fills my cup. And personal is my family, of course.
I think for me, again, it's the folks that are in different spaces, being advocates for us, right? I mean, like at Black Leaders Detroit, we get a decent amount of support from foundations and corporations. And it can be challenging sometimes working with me because I'm often going to say the thing that needs to be said, in spite of, you know, if it could potentially cost us funding. Still willing to say it because we're more interested in genuine relationships and people understand. And just on a personal note, I don't think that there are big pots of money in philanthropy that exist that we haven't put money into, right? We don't end up getting the credit, right? But like, if we just gonna be real, like most of the wealth in this nation was created by us to begin with. So we gave it away under duress, right? and distress to begin with, right? So like a lot of the foundations are giving away money that we put in their pots to begin with. So that's one thing. But I think one of the things that really fills my cup is so I just got finished with a course, a Harvard course that Jason Paulatier, who was on staff at Fifth Third at the time, was an advocate for me and approached me with this opportunity that I didn't know existed, right? And he did that after I kind of like gave him some challenging thoughts of mine on the dynamics of our relationships in the moment. And I just really appreciated him being able to hear my heart and my concern and then turn around and not to prove anything to me, just really being an advocate on the inside, knowing that this opportunity existed and encouraging me to apply for it. So those are the type of things that really fill my cup when I see us in different spaces, really being advocates for one another when it comes to opportunities like that.
I would say what fills my cup is certainly family, my boyfriend. I would also say church, right? So being able to really just seek God and sit still sometimes, because that's sometimes all that I need is just to rest in God and just to close my eyes, do my Bible study and fall asleep doing that, right? So just trying to find peace in that. I will also say working with youth, it takes a special type of person to work with youth. And I would say my youth fill me up. So just being around them, having their energy, right? Just them being kids and being excited to do TikToks and eat Happy's Pizza, right? So that fills me up, seeing my kids happy. That fills me up. I would also say I'm a foodie. I love to eat. I wouldn't be me if I didn't mention the food piece. So I like filling my belly up with good food. So going to a good restaurant, right? Hanging out, eating, chilling with my friends, that fills me up.
Well, I tell you, sometimes my cup is running low, and then I dig deeper. My cup is running on empty. I do more. When I've gone through the trials and tribulations, that's like, oh, no, I can't worry about myself right now, baby. I can't worry about myself. I got to do something. And altruistically, it makes me feel better. It makes me feel better when I'm able to assist somebody else's life and in a way that they don't understand or don't expect it. One thing about the Jive Turkeys Detroit, it sounds like a goofy name, but it's a name on purpose. It's a purposeful name because the word Jive Turkey meant somebody who is shiftless, who you can't depend upon, not non-dependable, who's always talking mess, not being accountable. I want to change the narrative with that name. So that's why I changed it. I use our name, call ourselves the Jive Turkeys Detroit. But then what that means is that when I'm with those kids, those babies, as you just said, and now mind you, we don't take pictures of the kids. You're never gonna see me bending down, bending over, giving something to a 7-year-old. Like I'm proud to do that. I want to put myself out of business, quite honestly. I want to be out of business because I mean, then the organization has done all it's could. We're at the gates of St. Peter, and we've done all I could. We're gone. I want nobody to be hungry. So I want to retire from this, but going out on top. But seeing those babies' faces and letting them know somebody cares about them. That's what we're really doing, is showing people who don't get a lot of love that we love you and we support you. And there's no better way to show that by opening up our homes, our hearts, our chests with a beautiful meal. Because without that, they have no energy, don't get up and go. If they ain't got no go, to get. So
I love that. Thank you. And Dwan, you touched on a really important point about, in some cases, it's a necessity to say what needs to be said, even if there's a potential of losing that money. My mentor, Angelique Power, she talks about the importance of real talk in philanthropy. And that's a lesson learned, right? I mean, it takes a point to get to that point, right? Where it's like, hey, here's what it is. So if you don't mind me asking, what has been the most valuable lesson you have learned in the philanthropic ecosystem, and how does it show up in your work? I mean, Dwan, if you could share some points on how you bring up things, in conversations that really lead to that real talk, that would be great as well.
I would say one of the things I try to condition myself to do is care about everybody that's doing this work, right? Like it's easy and comes really naturally for me to care about the folks that, we started this organization to work alongside of, and that's the Black entrepreneurs. It takes more work for me to be mindful, to be concerned for our funding partners, right? Because it feels like they're in a good position, right? But a lot of them have a heart, and they're in these spaces because they care, and they've worked hard, and they've been fortunate enough to find themselves in positions. But a lot of them have been trained and raised in some of these same systems that, have all the residue of the racist system that we all grew up in, you know what I mean? So being able to see me the same way that they see a white CEO of a nonprofit is going to be challenging for them. It's going to take extra work for them. So for me, it's trying to figure out how to remind myself that I need to be caring about them as well, because we're doing this work together. I think the other thing is remember, what I'm learning is that without being exposed to this type of work, I would have put everything in the box of racism, right? All of our limited access, I would have just put in that box. But what I'm realizing is that you definitely have that alive and well, right? But there's also the relationship component. And I think that oftentimes we find ourselves with a big Rolodex of people that are really have close proximity to the problem we're trying to solve, and a wealth of knowledge, right? Like you can't go into a barbershop without some experts on the Black condition, right? But we have to be just as intentional about building relationships and strategic about building relationships with folks that are in some of the other seats that gives us access. So I think that where I would have put some of the things in the box of racism, now I realize it's limited relationships. So I think that's one of the things that I try to preach to us as I'm trying to hold other folks accountable. On one end, I try to remind us that, look, if you're not intentional and you're not caring and building relationships with folks that have the bag, then you're not going to be able to get access to it. So that's one of the things that I'm learning and trying to grow and stretch myself and remind myself of.
I would just to riff off that a bit. I think, one resonant thing, and I think folks have heard this, Glenn Martin, who's an advocate that we support, and others too, have said those closest to the problem, most proximate to the problem, are closest to the solution, but usually furthest from the resources. And so certainly, in the privileged role that I sit in, I'm thinking about that all the time. And I think for me, the value that I channel is really humility. And I think it's particularly important with sort of all the weight and freight that comes with sitting in institutional philanthropy, to walk with that humility and to really invest in leadership that is not your own. That's the humility part. At the same time, I think it's important in doing that to not abdicate the power that you have. And it's a careful dance to navigate. Dwan talked about being in certain rooms, and there's critique and interrogation about the power dynamics that still exist in a city like Detroit, where lots of decisions are getting made by people that don't look like the majority of the population and may not even live in Detroit. And yet philanthropy has access to lots of those rooms. And so it's critiquing that, investing in leadership that is authentic to the community, but also being an ally, which means doing some work yourself, putting your skin in the game to move things forward.
One thing I found that is, even though I'm passionate about something, I've learned in this philanthropy world, it don't mean somebody else is passionate about it. And it was a shock to me that, wait a minute, you don't want to feed babies and kids? That's not the issue. It's just that they can't do it right now. So I'm like, wait a minute. It doesn't matter. What do you mean you can't do it right now? They're hungry right now. So I had to get like face like, whoa, my passion does not translate to somebody else's passion as well. It becomes the timing. And I've had to learn, not necessarily the hard way, but see, this organization was founded by me and initially funded a lot, mainly by me and some other individuals. But I had to realize, don't take it personal. Do not take this personal. Just realize what they're saying to you or what they're not saying to you. And if there are certain deadlines and dates and things that you have to have in your submission, make sure you have somebody else to do it, and cross all your T's and dot your I's and have another set of I's on top of that. Sometimes you might get too close to something. You don't see the forest for the trees. So you have to have a good team backing you up who's smarter than you, and don't take it personal, and just keep moving. Keep moving, keep asking, keep moving, and keep doing the damn thing.
I would say for me, one of the most valuable lessons has been the importance of mentorship, and really trying to understand philanthropy from different lenses, and at different levels as well. So from a student's perspective, right, from a youth's perspective, from a CEO, from the corporation, from, foundation. So really trying to understand that piece and being mentored. I feel like I'm mentored by some of my youth, right? I learn from them every single day that I'm with them. So the importance of mentorship in every area. So being genuine with those relationships and making sure that they're not one-sided. So making sure that I'm not only a taker, but I'm also able to offer. So like Dwan is one of my mentors, and he knows that he can call me at any given moment. Like, hey, I need you to come do registration for the bike ride. And he knows that I'm there, right, with 10 volunteers or 10 family members. So being able to not only take knowledge and information, but having something else to offer in return. So just the valuable lesson of genuine relationships, building those, strengthening those. Yeah, I think that's very important for me.
And then, as you all know, I run a youth-led foundation. So this question hits home for me. And Sharnese, I'm going to start with you, but anyone else can jump in. How can we start getting the next generation involved in organized philanthropy? Because again, we're all philanthropists, but the actual organized philanthropy.
Yeah, I would say first, educating the youth on what philanthropy is, because a lot of students don't even know what the word means, right? So number one would be educating the youth on what it means, and then giving them the power, empowering the youth to actually lead, right? So one thing that we do at the Konnection is we have our students create a service project each year, and they get to decide whatever it is from A to Z. This past school year, they did a popcorn giveaway. and we let them run with it. They're like, we want to give popcorn out. And I'm like, okay, let's give out popcorn. Is that what giving looks like to you? And they're like, yeah, we want to do it at the holiday, holiday time. We want to go downtown. We just want to spread some cheer. And I'm like, okay, let's roll with it. So we partner with a Black-owned popcorn store downtown, bought 100 bags of popcorn, and the students legit had free popcorn signs and passed it out. And they felt so good about that, right? Because they're like, we made people smile. We gave out popcorn to people who didn't have popcorn before. And I'm like, yeah, like y'all gave everybody popcorn, and just empowering them and making sure that they understand that their voice matters, what they care about matters, and making sure that, they have the resources to be able to do philanthropic projects. So this year, I know they talked about doing something with the homeless. So I'm ready to see what that looks like. It might be making ramen noodles and passing them out to the homeless, right? But making sure that they know that whatever they do, it matters.
I think, and Harry kind of touched on it, right? Like when you are in a service space, wanting to make sure, I heard him say that you won't catch him taking a picture with a 7-year-old, like, right? And I think we understand the sensitivity of making sure that folks have their dignity intact when, they're in position of need. So I think as I think about this question, Jeremiah, this was really, really brought to light, last year and this year again, when I heard you speak on the panel at Mackinac, and I heard Eva and the team speaking in Mackinac this year. So, we want to make it real. So what we're doing, we have a set of youth coming to do interns this summer, and they're going to get some assignments. They're going to get some exposure, but they're also going to lead and shape some things. We understand that they bring a level of expertise to the table, just in understanding like world from their viewpoint a lot better than we do, right? So we have a desire to figure out how to fund some young entrepreneurs. So we're going to expose them to the way that we do it, and then we're going to ask them to help shape it out and build an outline on what that should look like from BLD, and figure out how to have them lead it. So we're probably going to be reaching out to, the Hudson Webbers of the world to see if there's some funding available, what I mean, to get behind something like that. So I figured I'd put Melanca on the spot, like Sharnese.
Right, on notice. It's great. I just wanted to chime in, Jeremiah, to draw you into the conversation, because of course, you are a youth leader, you've started a foundation, and you also mentioned your mentor, Angelique, who I know has been very intentional at Skillman about supporting youth leadership. And it would be really interesting, I think, to hear from you about what that has looked like.
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. I appreciate it. In so many spaces, I've served on at least 7 youth advisory boards, right? And in many of those spaces, they'll bring out the donor and say that the youth are, phenomenal, they're doing great work. It's for youth and it's by youth. And then they try this out, and then the donor comes and they give the organization the money, and then they put the youth back in the back room and give them pizza, and they're not actually doing anything, and that doesn't lead to that form of investment that's needed in their future, right? They should be receiving the tools that are necessary for them to achieve their aspirations. So for me, and what's happening at Skillman is that we're starting to see a difference in what's being funded and being supported. From how can we go from passive consumption to active production with our youth? How can we start to give them the tools to then achieve their aspirations, and then tell us how that process went? Because it's okay for these processes to be messy. It's okay for these things for them not to be as concrete as an adult leading this type of work looks like, because that's a part of the process, right? And one thing I like to mention, in our meetings is that philanthropy is able to do things that businesses and politics can't. We can take risk, so it's okay for us to fail in this area, but gain some lesson in this area, and then apply it the next fiscal year. So it's figuring out how can we go about doing this in an intergenerational way so that we can lead to long-term change. So thank you. And then Harry, do you want to add anything?
Actually, I think everyone has kind of summed up everything perfectly. The next generation, they just have to know that they've been doing it already, just as we realized later on in life, before we knew what the thing was, as we all talked about, what philanthropy was, what it meant, how to do it. We have to let these young babies, these kids know by being kind to somebody, by being gentile, by being help, may I please, no, thank you, help, that kind of no, thank you. That's being charitable. That's being kind. That's being genteel. That's being respecting others. So it can be little tiny steps, but those tiny steps, they end up being larger, more impactful steps. But it starts with how you treat somebody. And I think we have to let these kids know that they're already doing it. And I think Dwan mentioned a great point. It's like, put them in charge of something, empower them. Go seize the day, young women, young men. Don't go out there, do it. I look at the young men who sell water on Mack Avenue. They call themselves the water boys. I'm trying to work with them. I want to work with them to empower them to get their tax ID number, for them to professionalize their guerrilla organic organization. As you mentioned, Jeremiah, they can take chances. Sure that they should be running in the middle of traffic all the time, but hey, they get rid of that water, and that you can't be more organically grown than those men right there on Mack Avenue and I-75, who right now are probably slinging water, boom, 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 all right now through all those thirsty people in their cars. But this is an example of going to where the people are. Let's not just show up once, twice a year where a person is, and here we are with our this and that. Let's be invested in that community and ask them what they got on this. Do you have 5 on this, right? And part of this, and then it's going to be a beautiful thing when they're working together, and it's the cohesiveness of the spirit of giving.
And then Melanca, you brought up an interesting point where, and Angelique Powers makes this point on a similar effect. And I mentioned it a lot in my conversations because she has so many interesting little nuggets where, Detroit is a phenomenal city, right? But so many of the things that dictate how the city operates come from Lansing, right? So what are some ways, so what do you think is the future of philanthropy for the city of Detroit? And then anyone could jump in now.
Yeah. Jeremiah, I might speak to just briefly. It's very true, and I would say too that the systemic nature of some of the challenges that that Detroit faces are going to take more than a local solution, and that's something when I came into the foundation, certainly with the background that I had, that was specifically focused on criminal justice reform. It was a challenge to come to a foundation that was specifically focused on Detroit. But I was very fortunate in having a board that's very sophisticated about such things and had their support to pull together a funders collaborative. So that's what we did. I made the case with our staff to the board that if we really want to have movement on reducing mass incarceration and increasing the success of folks that are so disproportionately Black and brown, which is implications for a city like Detroit, that we had to sort of raise our gaze to the state level, and to do that in a way that was thoughtful and had the benefit of shared expertise. We had to do that at a table with funders that were funding at a state level, funders that were local in other places, and most importantly, practitioners. And it's called the Michigan Justice Fund. It sits at the Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan. And really in its genesis, relied on us holding hands with 26 practitioners who were resourced to come up with the goals and objectives of the fund. And we're seeing movement because of that investment. So it's a very specific example. but speaks to your point about sort of the nature of the challenges in Detroit.
Anyone else? And then, as we all know, Black people are the most, before I start with that question, if anyone wants to start, who's in the audience would like to start putting some questions into the question box so we can get ready to ask for the Q&A, please feel free to do so. So in continuation of our conversation, as we all know, Black people are one of the most philanthropic groups across the country, which is not widely known. What are some ways that we all and you all can change and have been changing the narrative about Black giving?
I'd like to jump in on that one. So everybody on here knows that one of the ways that we look to raise money long-term at Black Leads Detroit is by asking everyday people to donate $1 a week, right? And we do something that we like to call changing the face of the hero. I mean, when we hear the term philanthropy, once we, learn what it actually means, oftentimes because of messaging in our minds, we see a white person with money and we see a Black or brown recipient, right, of something, be it food or whatever the case may be. So what we try to do at Black Leads Detroit is highlight the heroes. Like there's a lot of work that takes place in a nonprofit space and making sure that you send enough thank yous to the big foundations and your big supporters. We like to try to make sure we're doing the same or even more to somebody that's donating $1 a week, because a lot of times that $1 a week or that $52 a year is a bigger portion percentage-wise of their money than it is for a $100,000 check from, a billion-dollar endowment. You know what I mean? So that's one of the things that we like to do in kind of changing that narrative. And we try to highlight them on social media and anytime we get a chance.
I would say for me, joining things like TSOP, right? So being able to be on the steering committee for the Solar Philanthropy has been a blessing to me, because I've been able to learn about Black leaders who have been doing the work for years, right? I walked through the gallery and didn't know half of the people in there. And it's like, wow, these people are doing some amazing things. Me and my boyfriend was having a conversation as we were walking through. And we're like, never seen, I'm like, I've never seen this person before, never seen this person. And then reading their stories and you like, oh, wow, like this person is legit. Why don't I know about this person? So being part of these type of committees where you're able to learn. So I would say just educating myself, right? So that I'm well-versed in what our, community is doing for each other. I would say that's like step one for me, is just being more educated and joining things like TSOP and BDAD. So Black Executive Director Alliance of Detroit is another organization that I've joined, where there are some amazing Black leaders who I'm learning a ton from. So I'm still in the learning phase. I don't think that I know it all. I never want to be the smartest person in the room. So just learning, really.
And then before we jump into the Q&A, are there any upcoming programs that our audience can participate in at your organizations or at the organizations that you support?
So September 10th, we are having a second, what we call Detroit Drip, where we are supporting Black entrepreneurs in the fashion industry. And at Detroit Drip, the tickets haven't gone on sale yet. They will be live this week, but next week. But save the date. It's September 10th. And it's what we do is we encourage everybody to come dressed in something that they purchase from either a Black-owned boutique, clothing store, or a Black designer in Detroit. And what we end up doing is we have a contest where you can enter to participate in this contest, and everybody that's in attendance gets to vote for the best dressed in one of 4 categories: men wear, women wear, urban, and formal. And the winner will receive a $5,000 grant. So it's going to be, we had a lot of fun last year. It went really, really well. I'm not typically in favor of competitions, but because we are able to get a lot of support by people going to shop in some of the stores, my team was able to convince me to endorse this competition, and we had a lot of fun.
So
Can
we
you
have,
top that? Oh, sorry, go ahead. Sure.
no, go ahead, Melanca. I'll go after you.
No, because I was just gonna say, how can you top that? Go ahead.
So I am in favor of competition. So I think I'll beat that. No, I'm kidding. But we have an event on Monday, August 28th. It's our back to school clap-in. So we do an annual back to school clap-in where we are welcoming students back on their first day. It also doubles as a resource fair. So as parents are dropping off their students to school, they can also come right back outside and learn about the resources, organizations, programs that are in the community, from food banks to after school programs and things like that. So we're doing that, and then we're doing a breakfast right after, just as a mix and mingle / fundraising breakfast. So that'll be at Durfee Elementary Middle School on August 28th. And then right next door at the Durfee Innovation Society following the clap-in for the breakfast.
I just was, Hudson Webber doesn't typically throw our own events. We invest in partners that are doing such things, but I will just put on the radar that we are in the next month, probably, we'll be releasing an impact report that just talks about the work that we've been privileged to invest in, and some of the initiatives like the Michigan Justice Fund and others that the foundation has been moving forward over this it's a 6-year look back. And I think for us, it just was important to be, philanthropy can be such a black box where folks sort of like, what is it that you do? Or why do you make the decisions that you do about what you invest in? And so it's meant to kind of meet that question mark with more information about our work. So that's forthcoming. You can check our Facebook page and social media accounts for updates.
Perfect. So I'm going to start to roll in some of the questions from our audience, and then we're going to go from there. So let's go with the first one here. From Lenore, if hopefully I'm saying that name correctly. Lenore asks, what has been the most difficult challenge that you've encountered to date, and how did you overcome it? That can be for anyone.
I'm going to chime in, and I don't have a how do you overcome it, but I think it's worth acknowledging in this conversation that there was a terrible Supreme Court decision in this last week that has decimated affirmative action in higher education, given the court's makeup, with potential implications, although none of us should rush to change what we are doing until we are told otherwise by the court. And for me, I'm just saying this personally, this is a horrible moment in history that is, there are many, it seems like there are a lot of question marks about the trajectory of our democracy, lots of important conversations happening right now. And some of them, frankly, from where I'm sitting, quite scary. I think that for me, that's the challenge. Like, we are in a really challenging moment in our country, and what's that calling upon us to do? So I've got, this is not a problem that I've certainly resolved, but I just wanted to put voice to that because that's happening right now. And I do think, as an African-American person, that our community, there are assaults on our community about not just affirmative action, but also even this discourse around critical race theory and the erroneous assumption that by talking about our history and what has happened in our community, that is in some way a threat to our democracy, when in fact those very conversations are what make us stronger. All of that, we just need to lift our voices, I think, for what is right and true.
I'd like to just jump in quickly. What's important is that we remember the reason why we're doing it. It's not we're doing this for the benefit ourselves, not just ourselves, but for people who look like us. We might be blessed to have the ability to live, drive, eat, play where we want to play. And the disparities are so vast. And we're trying not to necessarily level the playing field, but at the end of the day, we're really just trying to make a difference, give people a leg up, something to feel confident about. I mean, I know this is as an aside, the recent tragedy of baby Winter, that has shaken the Detroit, the metropolitan area, hopefully the nation. Her name should reign supreme for what happened to that baby. And we're not talking about criminal justice here per se, but there are some links. There are links here somehow. I'm not going to go into all the things about this alleged perpetrator, but there are some things in our community that we really have to address. Can we solve every doggone thing? No, we can't. But we have to not necessarily stay in our lane, but I think it's important to expand our lane at times as we see fit. There's some things that we have started, like Jive Turkeys Detroit, but we've expanded. Last year, we gave out gasoline in the height of the gasoline crisis. It's about having an organization that's flexible. As you mentioned, Jeremiah and Dwan, we can make mistakes, and our board may be a little more forgiving, but the bottom line is for us to be impactful, deliberately impactful. And again, there's some things and situations that people may not feel the urgency that you may have, but you have to just barrel through it. Just barrel through it, and don't let nothing stop you, because you're doing God's work. And when God's work ain't gonna stop you. That's all I got to say about that.
I think that probably the biggest, I struggle to narrow it down to one, but probably the biggest challenge is to make sure that we are honoring, as an organization, we're honoring the people that are on staff that are tasked with doing the work. A lot of times people take these type of roles because they genuinely care. And we can be kind of like usurious, right, and abusive in the nonprofit space. And when we say, okay, well, wait, what's the least amount you'll take to come and do this work that you love so much, right? Because people love to do the work. But I don't believe in transferring the need from the place that you're trying to work and serve to the people that are working and serving. So trying to find that balance, right, to make sure that we are treating people well, paying people well, and just not being usurious because they love the work that they're doing. So I think that's one of the things that is in the front of mind for me.
I have a few challenges, but the one I'll highlight today, for me, because I have such a big heart for my kids, wanted to take them all out of their environments, right, and bring them right here to my house and saying like, hey, I have 2 extra rooms. All the kids just come move in here, right? And not being able to fully take care of the students that I serve. But one thing that I've learned is that sometimes you have to keep people in their environments for them to become the people that they'll become, right? Some of the challenges and some of the struggles that they go through in their life will in turn make them just stronger individuals, right? Stronger leaders in our community, because they'll know how to empathize with people who are going through the same things. So I would say just not being able to take all of my kids home. That's one of my biggest challenges because I care so much.
Can I come back with one more, Jeremiah, that's just like kind of still at the top of the list?
Are you trying to come? I thought you didn't want to compete. I just feel like
I don't want to compete. And I was thinking to myself, like, maybe that's why Sharnese didn't want to work with me, because she didn't want to be the smartest person in the room. And she's like, I'm smarter than Dwan. I ain't going to work over there at Black Leaders Detroit. That's what came to mind when you was talking about that. But anyway, don't take shots at me. I think it's making an ask and it being well received by us, right? It's like I'm trained to and learn to make ask and set up ask from foundations, from corporations. But I think we are like, accustomed to being asked for money at church, you know what I mean? Or our religious institutions. And we're also accustomed to that family member hitting us up saying, yo, like I'm in a jam, like I need something, you know what I mean? But not so much somebody that is from the community saying, hey, donate to this cause. It feels a little bit different. And when we first kicked off the organization, I had to reach out to a couple of friends, and they know that like I never saw myself like being a fundraiser by vocation. But I reached out to them and I had to ask them to donate some money before the organization even got off the ground, because I needed them to help support like building the website. And the conversation went something like this. I said, look, I want to be comfortable with asking y'all to support this work. And I want y'all to be comfortable saying no, if no is the right answer. And I don't want y'all to look at me funny because I'm about to ask you for money. And I don't want y'all to think I'm gonna look at y'all funny if you say no. It's like, but I don't want no to be the answer if it's not the right answer. You know what I mean? And then getting in rooms where I have to ask, a crowd of us to support the work. And I think because of the way that we're accustomed to doing philanthropy, sometimes that's a shift in thinking for us. And it's a struggle when I go into an all-white room and I get a bigger response, and nobody in that room has any potential for getting funding from Black Leaders Detroit. But everybody in the room that's all Black may have an opportunity to get some funding, or somebody they know get some funding from Black Leaders Detroit, but end up getting more like people in the all white audience to donate either $1 or more a week than I would do from the all Black audience. So and I haven't figured that out. I haven't solved that problem. I think we're getting a little bit better at it. But if you got any suggestions, Jeremiah, feel free to let me know.
I'm gonna duck my head on that one. We have another question from Fran. We talk about engagement for youth. What are the current platforms that they can use to learn about philanthropy and put their ideas to the test?
So there's a lot of different youth councils and a lot of foundations like the Skillman Foundation have youth-led. Jeremiah, I think you can speak on this a little bit better because I know you're familiar with the President's Council at the Skillman Foundation. So I'll actually hand it back to you because I know you know a lot more in that space.
Yeah, the President's Youth Council, when it first began, it was the President's Youth Council was a group of 12 youth who were going to advise the president of the Skillman Foundation on just on ways to engage youth and get youth involved in philanthropy, the president and the president's team. And then it kind of transformed into it becoming youth actually giving away dollars towards initiatives and programs that met their interests. So in total, I believe the Skillman President's Youth Council has given away roughly around $300,000 towards organizations that meet their interests. And I believe this year they'll be giving away $200,000 this second cohort towards youth-led organizations dealing with going from education to mental health. And then I believe they're going to have a discretionary fund with organizations that they just love and care for as well. So really going back to the point I was making is finding youth advisory boards that are not just putting youth out there and saying that so they'll either do one or the other, right? They'll say that these youth are phenomenal, or they're youth-led, they're doing great things, or they're doing great things in their community, or they're going to say the opposite, right? They're at risk, they're vulnerable, and they're in need of service, right? And so it's figuring out, one, finding the organizations that are framing our youth in an asset frame instead of a deficit frame, and then actually have a mission and vision that's aligning with the work that's happening at the organization. And Stillman is doing it, and so many other phenomenal organizations are doing it. But it's really just getting youth actively engaged. And you can always come to the Steen Foundation. We have a whole bunch of articles and resources that highlight just how powerful youth philanthropy is, especially for Gen Z in particular. So those are the resources that I can share.
Jeremiah, I was just going to add to that. There's an organization called the Council of Michigan Foundations that on whose board I sit, that helps support youth advocacy councils across the state. And those are just as you're describing, community foundations with endowed funds that an advisory group of youth have discretion over. And I know that they are always in outreach mode. And I will drop a link here too as another access point for folks. You know, there should be one. I think they cover most of the state, but would be wonderful to have folks engage that way as well. See if I know how to do this. Yeah, I might send it to you. Not sure I know how to post to everybody.
And then we have a question from Cliff. Cliff is asking, what is being done, excuse my birds, what is being done to remove the silos between organizations that are doing similar work? There are many community orgs, but they rarely work together. So what are we doing to bridge some of these gaps and work together within the ecosystem?
I'll jump on here. My organization, motto is feeding families is what we do. And that we work closely with another organization called Only, operated by Tree Grants. That organization has been around for 13 years. That organization feeds over 200 people every Tuesday, right out of Directions Hair Salon and TV Lounge. Every Tuesday, full kitchen. They deliver food to the NSO and other organizations. But he and I partnered on different things, and we were both in that space. Well, it's like we had a silo, and then we broke down the silos, right? We broke them down and said, hey, let the Jive Turkeys take February. Let us use my resources to fund all the initiatives that you're working with, and he's done as well. It's about communication. We're not in competition to help people when people have many, many different needs. If I'm feeding people on one day a year, for example, and I do more, but that's nothing. That's one freaking day, even though it's impressive. But you have to work with other people, other organizations, and do other things to be more expansive, expand our breadth and depth. But this kind of this conversation allows us to break down those silos to answer the question specifically, because we're now knowing what each of us are doing, and we're listening and understanding of what each of our missions, individual missions are, to see how we can put together a plan and expand and grow. Because at the end of the day, we want to do more and touch more people. And this is the perfect vehicle to enable us to do that. And I thank you for that question. I hope I answered it a little bit.
I would also say one thing that I mentioned earlier was BDAD, the Black Executive Director Alliance of Detroit. It's an organization of Black executives in Detroit who are running youth-led organizations. And that's an organization that I've learned a lot about other organizations in the space that are doing similar work. And it's allowed us the space to be able to collaborate. So one thing that we do at the Konnection is every 6 weeks, we're changing our career pathways where the students are learning hands-on career pathways that they choose, right? So this year we'll be doing fashion design. I think we're doing, I can't remember what else, I think culinary arts again. So what we do is we find organizations within, the BDAD network, and we say, hey, would you like to collaborate on this 6-week project where you all come in, work with our students for 6 weeks to teach them these different career pathways. That way, it's not us trying to learn how to do culinary arts, or it's not me learning how to be an engineer, right? And then just teaching the kids a mediocre curriculum that I just made up based on what I learned, but actually finding the experts in that space and bringing them into the organization to be able to collaborate. So for me, it's about being intentional and finding those organizations who know what they're doing and bringing them in to collaborate. And then us going into their, into their spaces and offering what we do well. So the mentoring components, the icebreakers, the fun things, bringing in what we do well to their organization.
I think it's worth noting too, just on the institutional philanthropy side, that those of us in these seats have a responsibility not to exacerbate the scarcity mindset that often is one of the dividing factors among organizations, because folks are competing for resources and funding for the work, and funders can make that a worse problem or a easier problem. And one of the truths is, it's not, the solve for that is not fund everything, because philanthropy obviously has limited resources too. But we do spend a lot of time helping to convene tables where folks can, the collaboration that Sharnese was just talking about, can make space, either invest in capacity for folks to have people on their teams that can spend more time understanding what peers are doing, so that folks can row together, and also identify lanes if that is what might be most effective, just by kind of seeing across the transom and seeing what others are doing.
Yeah, and similarly to BDAD, I've been fortunate enough to be able to be connected to some amazing leaders that's doing work in the same space as Black Leaders Detroit. So Charity Dean from Metro Detroit Black Business Alliance, Regina Ann Campbell from Build Institute, and Chanel Contreras from Prosper Us. They all work in a similar space. So we've been working together to try to figure out, like, what does collaboration look like from us? And we've received funding from the Ford Foundation to get that work started and underway. So that's going well, and us learning from each other. Of course, with schedules as busy as ours, trying to make sure that we're all able to be in the same room at the same time, and then figuring out, like, how to define exactly what that's going to look like. So that's, I say that to say it's a great question, and it's one that we're wrestling with internally, and some things are happening because of it. So that's it. In addition to that, there are some white-led nonprofits that do similar work that have blueprints that we've been able to benefit from at Black Leaders Detroit, right? So our no interest loan model came from an organization called Hebrew Free Loan. We've been doing no interest loans in the Jewish community for 128 years. So we went to them and were able to build relationships, from really good friends with the executive director over there, and they gave us their blueprint. So we took the blueprint, tweaked it, and made it a better fit for the Black community, and rolled it out last year, and it's going extremely well. So I say that to say that, there's no shame in looking for relationships outside of our community. If somebody's doing something really well and has mastered something, going to figure out, like, how to take that and make it a benefit for our community, being led by us, though, right? So.
And to me, you all are phenomenal thought leaders within the philanthropic ecosystem, and you all are making some groundbreaking change. And I'm stealing this from another mentor of mine, Orlando Bailey. But what do you all dream about?
Well, let me just reflect back to Shine, Jeremiah, because I will say, if you are a representation of the future and you are the right now, I mean, that's a dream for me. I feel like our future is secure. So I just want to appreciate your leadership. It's incredible.
What do I dream about? Dream at night about? I'm gonna echo this by saying what I mentioned earlier. I want those brown, Black babies to know somebody cares. I want them to wake up empowered. I want them to feel like they can do anything they want to do. I want them to know that it's going to be safe where they live. They can walk down the street and play, be a kid. I want them to grow up and fall down and somebody's being able to pick them up and say, we love you, get your butt back up and get back in the house or something like that. I want them to have that freedom to be what they want to be, live where they want to live, and at least get outside their head of what they see. It might be some darkness where what they might see on a day-to-day basis. But I want them to expand their mind, their soul, and say, yeah, I can go live in Portugal. Why not? Why not? I can go to Harvard. Why not? I can go to Western Michigan like I did. I didn't go to Harvard, but I went to Western. But anyway, the point I'm using as an example is act like you can go anywhere you want to, be what you want to be, and be empowered by people who look like us. I use a FUBU statement all the time, for us, by us. But at the end of the day, we are all on this ship and we all rise together because we are all we got. So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Go ahead, Dwan. I'm waiting on you because I know you're gonna try to one-up me when I go. So
Look, as long as y'all don't put me behind Jeremiah, I'm good. I feel all right. I feel decent coming behind anybody besides Jeremiah. I don't think they're gonna even have us on here next time. They probably just gonna have you on here just doing a master's class, Jeremiah. But I would say there's a couple things. Now I'll try to be brief. One, like our goal is to get 1 million people to donate $1 a week, right? So to raise $52 million to have that in the pot for Black entrepreneurs. Think that's doable. And also we want to see if what we're doing at Black Leaders Detroit is something that could be easily replicated in other cities with large Black population. But I also think that, as I think about 2022 or 2020, and one of the things that happened in 2020 after, the impact of the pandemic and, the Great Awakening, right, that was, I guess, spearheaded by the brutal deaths of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, just to name those three. And then the young brave folk that were protesting and holding the mirror up to us as a society, and where we all had to deal with it because it wasn't going to go away. I think one of the things that I would like to see us position ourselves to is to really embrace being the educators of our white brothers and sisters. As race became one of the top topics at a time like that, and they really felt rightfully so inadequate on being able to even participate in the conversation. And it's so scary for them because, sometimes it feels like if they make a mistake, we're getting ready to as opposed to be a loving teacher that would, hold and correct and educate, we're getting ready to pull the stick out and say, you got it wrong again, and pop them upside their head. As they do a cost benefit analysis, they're like, I'm not entering in that conversation because I know I'm gonna mess up. I would like to see us really figure out ways to position ourselves to be educators to them in a way that's going to benefit us all, right? As you talk about like the rising tide and all of that, I think that sometimes we miss opportunity. And, you know, similarly to the way that the relationship works between philanthropy and nonprofits, where it feels like it's here when it's really here because, you know, foundations are tasked with changing the world with their money, and they can't do that without us. And we're, you know, tasked with changing the world with our work because of our hearts, and we can't do that without the money, right? So I think that a lot of times, you know, we have to, I know that everybody's not called to this work, but I feel like there's opportunity to be educators to folks that would be allies if given the proper opportunity and proper guidance. So that's one of the things that I dream about, you know, consistently, Jeremiah. Thanks for the question. I'll pass the mic to you, Sharnese.
I'll pass. No, I'm kidding. No, I'll say I dream about the connection expanding across the nation. I dream about one of the students that we serve actually becoming CEO of the Konnection. So my goal is to be able to pass off the organization to one of the students who we've actually served. That's something that I really dream about and that I hope and I pray happens for us. I would also say just equitable access. I think that's the conversation that's always at hand. Just being able to easily access everything that we deserve, everything that we need, everything that we want, not only for us, but the generations to come after us.
Okay, and as we're nearing the end, it's going to be the last question from me. What is one thing that you want the audience to leave this conversation knowing?
I would say that everyone has something to give, regardless of if it's money, if it's time. I think a lot of times we feel inadequate or we don't feel like we're enough to be able to give something to someone else. So just knowing that everyone has something to give. And I want to say that that's one thing that I learned from Dwan actually, is that although we all have a lot to learn, we also have a lot to give. So I would say that just be willing to give. Also, don't be selfish. Stop being stingy, y'all.
Just to riff off that, in the exhibition, which one of the things to leave folks with, Jeremiah, is certainly to visit the exhibition, which is powerful, as Sharnese had described earlier in the conversation. But Gandhi said, I think it's attributed to him, but the difference between what we do and what we're capable of doing would suffice to solve most of the world's problems. Just to Sharnese's point, I think that, you know, that call to step up and do what you can be transformative for our community and beyond, as Dwan was speaking to as well, because our destinies are all connected.
I would just say that, you know, all of us that get invited to do these panels and do this work, and you see us on the news and all this stuff, we're very, very regular folk. And we have, you know, some gifts and talents that end up, you know, opening up doors and giving us access to do the work that we love to do. But we also have like great limitations. So, you know, we're very, very regular folk that, you know, if you know our limitations, you would not be impressed with us. And I say that to say, we all have the ability, again, to be a part of the change, and we're all needed, and it's very necessary that we all join in and do what we can together. And nobody is more important than the next person. That's it.
Cool. Okay, well, thank you all so much for sharing your time with us today on behalf of the Soul of Philanthropy. Your insight and wisdom in this space is phenomenal. I'm going to be passing on the mic to Kia with some lasting messages.
Thank you so much. I'm over here just cheering and sometimes getting teared up. This was an amazing conversation. Thank you so much, Sharnese, Melanca, Dwan, Harry, and Jeremiah. It's been a beautiful, beautiful conversation. We have a ton of programs happening throughout the rest of the summer. We're just halfway through. Thank you for the shout out to visit the exhibit at Detroit Historical Museum. We've been through our sponsors, who I'm so happy to thank and appreciate, the Kellogg Foundation, Flag Star Foundation as a key partner, Early Works, Detroit Philanthropy, and a ton of others who have joined us along the way. We are able to offer, and this particularly is through the Skillman Foundation as well, free admission for youth. So if you have a youth group that you want to bring in, please let us know. Message me, message Colin, message tsopmichigan@gmail.org. You can also message Sharnese if you know her directly, and we would love to get your youth into the exhibit this summer, which is open through August 26th. I'm also going to share on the screen our next upcoming event. I hope you all can see that is Black Women in Philanthropy, breakfast happening this Tuesday. I'm sure it will just be a continuation of this conversation, to be honest. So I think we've started some good things here. So I hope you all can join us for that. I did just pop in a promotion code for the next 24 hours for those who are here for half off. So if you go to the link in the chat, I'll go ahead and post that now. You can get your ticket for half off of the $50 price, and feel free to share that out. I'm going to share the promo code as well. But in addition to this event, there's a ton more happening this summer. We have a culmination event where we'll actually be doing some grant making and giving out funds, which Colin can talk about now. So thank you all so much. This has been a great gift to me, and I know everyone here.
Yes, absolutely powerful conversation. I want to say thank you to all of our panelists and our phenomenal moderator, Mr. Jeremiah Steen. So I want to say thanks for your contributions. On August the 26th, which is a Saturday from 1 until 3 p.m., we will be having our closing ceremony at Campus Martius. So encouraging everybody to come out. We will be recognizing all of our sponsors, doing check presentations from Flagstar, from Kroger. We've partnered with Black Leaders Detroit, who will also be doing a check presentation. TSOP Michigan will be giving away $7,500 total to Black-led nonprofits on this day. $2,500 each to 3 different Black-led nonprofits. We'll also be partnering with several Divine Nine organizations to also do a giveaway on August 26th. So it'll be a fun-filled day of Black giving, and we encourage everybody to come out and participate. Again, Saturday, August 26th, from 1 to 3 p.m. at Campus Martius. We'll have a food truck there as well. So come out, and it should be a really nice time, and just bring the whole family and celebrate Giving Black. I want to also highlight once again the exhibit itself on display now until Sunday, August 27th. A lot of the faces that you saw tonight will be displayed as part of the exhibit. So we truly have the best of the best here participating in our Celebrating Black initiative this summer. So want to say thank you to Kia, my co-chair, partner in crime in this effort, as well as thank you to Sharnese, who is part of our steering committee. All the great work she does at the Konnection, Dwan Dandrige, who Dwan actually has an award named after him as part of our award honorees, and Mr. Harry Todd, who is a hidden gem in the city of Detroit. A lot of people don't know all the work that Harry has done, not only with Jive Turkeys Detroit, but all across the city and all across the state. So 06. And Melanca Clark, of course, without really can't say enough about Melanca. I remember I called Melanca and told her that I needed her part of this initiative because she is the true heart and soul of Black philanthropy. So happy to have her as part of this panel as well. So thank you all very much. Round of applause to everybody, and we look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you all. Take care, everyone.
Thanks.
Being here.
Great job, Colin. Thanks. Great, phenomenal job, Kia. Thanks for leading us, and you too, Jeremiah.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.